Hey everybody, I hope today finds you well, and it's wonderful to be in Yahusha. And he's got another word for us today. It's called repetitive, it's called continual, it's called never get tired of doing good. And we're going to go into certain aspects of the abomination of desolation as well. And so what I want to show you firstly is the word repetition, because everything in life is repetitive. Routines, you get up, you go to sleep, you get up, you go to sleep. Most of the things we do from day to day are very repetitive. If you work in a trade, most things are repetitive. Yahusha is very repetitive too. Some might call that a pattern. Some might call that order. We know that Yahusha is very much an Elohim of order. He keeps things in order. The sun rises and the sun sets. The seasons continue as they will until he returns. So let's look at this word repetition and see how this relates to our life. Because remember, as we approach all scripture, as we approach everything in life that Yahusha is doing, let's look at everything in the vein. In the vein that Yahusha has given us, what is the vein? The vein is our deliverance. The vein is the narrow gate that you can only find in Yahusha, because it's an invisible, it's a spiritual reign. You've got to become spiritual. You can't become spiritual unless you come into the narrow gate, which is Yahusha Elohim. He is your deliverer. That's what his name means. And so as you come in the narrow gate, then you need to become spiritual, which is a baptism of spirit and a baptism of fire. And that will take you through all the preparation, the burning, the transformation to become a new creation, which you need to become if you're going to enter the wilderness of waiting to serve him. So let's look at all these scriptures through that vein and recognize that he has given us a mandate to get this out into the world. Some people call it the Great Commission. It was a bit different for them back then. They went physically out into the world. Well, we have to go out into our days, some more than others, depending on our jobs or stage of life. But we can certainly all use this wonderful tool called the internet to get everything across the world straight away. Repetition. Firstly, repetition means a duplicate copy of a document, or a doubling something. Repeat it. Implication, a second in order, rank, age, quality, or location. College, copy, double, fatlings, next, second order, twice as much. Whatever you're doing, do it twice as much. Repetition, continuing something repetitively. It also means a change, as in repetition or angels change. So repetition also means change. Then I looked up the word in the Hebrew for repeat, because we have to keep doing what Yahusha tells us to do constantly, repetitively, because people don't get it the first time. Sometimes the second or 200th time, you've got to keep repeating it over and over. It's usually simple things, and they get reworded and reworked and tweaked here and there, repeated constantly through the scriptures. The same message though, repeated constantly. Repeat means in Hebrew to fold together, to repeat or to double it, folding it together. Fold the truth, fold this repetitive instruction to us, and all his instructions are commandments of love, the two royal laws of love. So fold the love into everything you're doing. It doesn't have to be a strict word and a strict teaching or a strict rebuke, or it can be in any situation in life. Fold it in. To duplicate or repeat, to protest, to testify, as by reiteration. So you can protest, you can testify, you're a witness, you testify that something's the truth and something's right or something's wrong. You're testifying, you're witness to it. Intensively, to encompass or restore, as a sort of reduplication. Admonish, charge, earnestly lift up, protest, call, take to record, relieve or rob, solemnly stand upright, testify, give warning, bear, call to, give, take to witness. This is something that has to be done repetitively. So it's not so much doing something repetitively, it's being something repetitively. We have to be this witness. We have to be this oak tree standing upright. We have to testify, give warning, bear, give, call, take to witness, restore, uplift, all this repetitively, constantly. Also, it means, again, to fold. Repeat means to fold, to duplicate, literally or figuratively, by implication, to transmute, transitive or intransitive, to speak, strike, again, alter, double, be given to, change, disguise, be diverse, pervert, prefer, repeat, return, do the second time. So you're getting the idea of what repeat means, or what repetitive means. We have to be repetitive. We have to get this message, and we're talking about the vein, remember? We have to get it out there into the world through everything we've done. And even if we've done this message or these ideas or topics years ago, keep doing them. Do them again. Because as I was saying last week, people aren't going to look up on your website, on our website, certainly aren't going to look up the archives. They're not going to go looking at articles and videos that are years old, because they're in a constant news feed. Most apps now, whether they be YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, X, they're all TikTok, they're all on news feed, and they just get lost to the archives of time. People don't look up things, they're just in the moment. So if you're not constantly putting things into their news feed in the moment, you can say on it, look, research this, or go find us here, or look there if people want to. But the average person is just constantly scrolling past. So it's got to be in the moment, fresh. We have to constantly, repetitively get this message out there about deliverance, don't we? Repetitive is a strong literary and teaching tool used to not only emphasize the importance of certain words and instructions, but to also ensure that the message is burnt into our memories. Scripture repeats itself so much. It's very repetitive. Verse after verse sometimes can be almost identical. You know, that's not because the author was nuts. It's because he knows how people take things in repetitively. Then I looked up continual. That's another way of saying this. Continually. Keep doing this continually. Don't stop. It's continual. It's perpetual. It's never ending. Continual. And in Hebrew, continual means a weeping, a dripping, overflow, or a sore. Something weeping. It also means to drive on, to follow close, unsatiable. Unsatiable, insatiable, you're not satisfied, you're constantly driving on, you're going, keep going, following close, like someone who's tailgating, trying to chase someone. Aren't we supposed to be chasing Yahusha, tailgating him, trying to find him all the time? Keep driving on, keep driving, keep going, keep surging forward. Insatiable thirst for Yahusha, can't be satisfied. We want more of him and more of him. Well, the opposite of that is apostasy. People who aren't tailgating Yahusha, people who aren't chasing after Yahusha, but instead run the other way, is apostasy, because that means a falling away. So you're not driving on, you're falling away. And that's a crime. That is rebellion, revolt, turn away. It's wrong. To stretch, continuance, a constant, the regular daily sacrifices, always perpetual. We're going to go into that a little bit, because that is pointing us towards Daniel and what happened in Daniel's prophecies. The continual daily sacrifices will cease. So it means to stretch out, continuance, a constant, something that's constant, something that begins, just like driving. We're talking about tailgating, we're talking about driving on. Well, when you're driving, that's the sign of a good driver. You don't have to concentrate on driving. You don't have to concentrate on which pedal to push. If someone darts out in front of you, your foot automatically just goes to the brake. It's just second nature to you. After a few years of driving, that's how it becomes. Well, this continuance, constant, regular, perpetual, this behavior as we start changing, going through the narrow gate, the spirit baptism and fire baptism, as we become a new person, a changed, clean person, it won't be such a battle, a constant running away from thoughts and freaked out, and your behavior is just completely erratic and bizarre. It won't be that, because it will be You'll be in the continual. You'll be doing it. So let's go to this scripture in Daniel 8 that word is pointing to, the regular daily sacrifices. In Daniel 8, it says, "Then a little horn grew from one of those four horns." A little horn grew from one of those four horns. It grew and became very big. It grew towards the southeast, towards the splendid land. Remember, this is all imagery, visions. The little horn became very big. It grew until it reached the sky. It even threw some of heaven's hosts and some of the stars to the ground and trampled them. Well, who are the heavenly hosts usually referred to as? Angels. Who threw some of heaven's hosts to the ground, perverted them, trampled them, took them as his own? Satan did. So we know who the little horn is, don't we? It's Satan. Of course, all these visions can be interpreted in the physical, natural at the time, historically, but we're looking at it abstractly because it's got to mean something to me, not, 2,000-3,000 years ago to, the Jews under the Greeks or Greco-Romans or Antiochus Epiphanes or all those sort of things. It's got to mean something to me. Today, spiritually, all scripture is to point us to something spiritual. So that little horn, who we worked out is Satan, that little horn became very strong and it even exalted itself above the ruler of heaven's hosts. Well, that would be back then Yahuah or Yahusha now. He's exalted himself above Yahusha, he thinks. Exalted himself above the ruler of heaven's hosts. It stopped the continual daily sacrifices. This being stopped the continual daily sacrifices that were offered to the ruler. And the set-apart place, the temple, where people served the ruler, was pulled down also. We saw all that happen historically. Because of this sin, the continual daily sacrifices were stopped. The Jews were very upset about that when it happened historically. The Greeks came in and sacrificed pigs. Antiochus Epiphanes was the big abomination of desolation. He was the man of sin, and that's what they all think it means. It's happened, it's done, it's gone, they say. No. Got to look at it spiritually. Because of this sin, the continual daily sacrifices were stopped. And that's when we came into the Hanukkah and Maccabees and all that sort of stuff that went on. Truth was thrown down to the ground. The little horn did all these things and was very successful. Then I heard two set-apart angels speaking. One of them asked the other, "How long will the things in this vision last?" Daniel's seeing these visions, and then suddenly he sees all this stuff about the continual daily sacrifices stopping. Then another angel says, "How long will all these things in the vision last? The stopping of the continual daily sacrifices, the abomination that lays waste, or the abomination of desolation. How long is it going to be set up for? How long will it be going on for? The abomination that lays waste and destroys, and the trampling down of the set-apart place and heaven's hosts. How long will this be going for?" And the other set-apart angel said, "This will last for 2,300 evenings and mornings." In other words, it's talking about the offerings, because they were done twice a day, evening and morning. So it was the morning sacrifice and the evening sacrifice. So this will happen for 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then that which is set apart will be made right again. Then that which is set apart will be made right again. Well, look at it spiritually. Look at it in the abstract. What is it referring to? We know that we are the temple. We know that we have been defiled. We know that Satan sits on the hearts of all human temples, even ours up until recently. Satan has been enthroned on all heavens. He dragged some of heaven's hosts down. He's now pestering everybody. The pit has been opened and he sits on the throne of men and women's hearts, declaring that he is Elohim, thinking that he's Yahusha, thinking that if he can find a human being that has Yahusha in them, that he can then get back into heaven, because he's been booted out. When Yahusha went back into heaven and presented his blood and appeared as the lamb freshly slain, there was a war in heaven. Remember, Michael and all these things went on, and Satan was cast out. He's set apart. His demons and followers was cast out with them down to earth. And so Satan has been cut out, shut out. He cannot get into that dimension. prior to that, he could. Prior to creation, he was obviously dethroned. He was thrown out of heaven as far as stripped of rank. He was thrown to earth, but he could still access. He could still go in and out and, come to the throne and accuse Job and accuse people left, right, and center. The accuser of the brethren. Scripture says finally the accuser of the brethren has been cast down. That wicked being called death and Hades and evil and Satan. So he's kicked out. So if he can get onto men and women's hearts and find someone, that's why he's after us. Because we've been washed clean and we have the portal on our hearts. So if he can come into us and access that portal, he thinks he's so stupid. He thinks that he can get back into the throne room. He doesn't realize that we can't enter the throne room physically. We have direct access. We can hear Yahusha's voice and he can hear us, and we can love and we can have relationship. We don't physically go through another dimension though, do we? It's spiritual. See how stupid Satan is? So let's continue. John 15:13, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for your friends. This is the behavior. This is the continual, repetitive behavior we must have. Ephesians 5, and walk in the way of love, just as Yahusha loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice. So, this abomination of desolation that lays waste, set up in men and women's hearts, has caused all the sacrifices to cease. All the sacrifices to Elohim, which is living behavior, he's caused them all to cease. The continual daily sacrifices have ceased. How long will this last for? Until Yahusha makes it right. And Yahusha's making it right in those that he's chosen, in his anointed bride, his elect few. There's only few that will find the narrow gate. He's causing that to cease, and he's rebooting it and setting up the daily sacrifices again, making us recognize that those daily sacrifices are not sheep and cattle and goats and the sacrificial system. We are now the living sacrificial system. We throw our lives onto the altar, onto the chopping block, into the cauldron, and allow ourselves to be burnt up, all the impurities to be burnt up. So that's what's happening. Whenever you see in scripture, even the most obscure scriptures that seem a bit weird and confusing, if you see the word offering or sacrifice, it's talking about you. Luke 9, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. If you want to maintain who you think you are, your likes and dislikes and personality and reputation and everything, you've spent a lot of effort and labor and hard work your whole life forming who you're going to be. Whether it was formed through pain and suffering or whether it was formed through absolute debauchery and pleasure, you still formed it. It's happened to you and you've contributed to it happening. And if you want to hold on to it, it baffles me, even people who are completely disgusting and hate themselves, they say they hate themselves, they still want to hold on to it. Well, if you hate yourself so much, become someone different. But of course, you can't be that unless you become spiritual. You can't become spiritual unless you go in the narrow gate. And so many people, even using Yahusha's name, don't know where the narrow gate is because they don't face that he is Elohim. They will not give up their life for him because the narrow gate involves suffering. It involves picking up your torture stake and following Yahusha to the death. Death of you. You. Everything that resembles you. Your speech. Your stupid sense of humor. Your bad language. What you've filled yourself with, habits and the reputation that follows you around. You have to die to all of it. Matthew 9 says, but go and learn what this means. I desire compassion, not sacrifice. He was talking to the Pharisees when he said this. Go and learn what this means, since you're so learned and up yourselves. I desire compassion, not sacrifice. He would much prefer kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, love, joy, peace. He would much prefer the fruits of his spirit and the royal laws of love happening within our vessel than physical sacrifices, than obligations, than rituals. For I have not come to call the righteous, I've come to call the sinners. Recognize who he's calling. The first will be last and the last will be first. If you're walking around like a Pharisee thinking you have the right to treat people a certain way and rank certain sins and look down your nose at people because they've been through this experience or that experience, that is Pharisaical behavior. And Yahusha was talking to Pharisees and he said to them, I did not come to call those who think they're well, who think they're righteous. I came for the sinners, the sick, the downtrodden, those who need the physician. Matthew 7, enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many, and their videos have millions of views. And those who enter by it are many, but the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Very few will find this narrow gate to life. Very few will enter this vein, into the vein of deliverance. Galatians 6, let him that is taught in the word communicate to him that teaches in all good things. Be not deceived, Elohim is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. Everything you sow into yourself, into your energy, into your focus, into your life, into yourself, what you sow, you will also reap. For he that sows to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. If you want to focus wholly and solely and purely on what you see in the mirror and what's going on there, that is what you will reap. Constant corruption, constant put downs, constant demons coming at you about yourself and who you are and everything that's going on with you, your flesh, your this, your that, your reputation, who you think you are. Flesh, 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 flesh. It's all flesh. The flesh profits nothing. If you want to sow to the flesh, you will reap corruption. And corruption feels wretched. Corruption feels empty. Corruption feels like death. So if you want to sow to all those parts of your physical form, because we all have to live in the flesh until Yahusha comes back, but we don't have to let the flesh dominate us. We don't have to be controlled by it. We are to overcome it. We are to overcome our flesh. Be the ruler over it. So you want to sow to your flesh, you'll reap corruption. But he that sows to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap everlasting life. You want to sow to your flesh or sow to your spirit? If you want to sow to the Spirit, you will reap everlasting life. Let us not get tired of doing good. Let us not get tired of doing good. Everything that's been mentioned in every single scripture so far is repetitive. Don't lose sight of the original word, repetitive. Sowing to the flesh, repetitive. Haven't we done it our whole life? Repetitive. Looking in the mirror, looking at, what I look like and, repetitive. Constant. Well, sowing to the Spirit can be repetitive as well. Becoming a new person that is spiritual can be repetitive too. Let us not get tired of doing good repetitively. Do not get tired of doing good. Do not get tired of believing that when you speak a word from Yahusha, it means something. His words do not return void. They always set out and accomplish everything they do. And we saw that in the first verse of the scripture. Let there be, and everything was. He said it, let there be. Just the power, the seeds within the vibrations of his voice can actually create things. So if we're hearing that voice and we choose to let his voice come through our mouth, never get tired of doing good, never get tired of lifting up, never get tired of saying good, never get tired of behaving good, believing that it means something. Your life means something because you're listening to Yahusha. It's very easy to look around in reality and go, what on earth is my effect here? It's like a pebble in the ocean. Nobody could give a damn about what I believe. Never get tired of doing good. Never get tired of getting rid of that negativity and being positive. It's not hard to be negative. It comes natural to listen to all that filth. Never get tired of doing good. For in due season we shall reap. You've got to wait. Do good and wait. Say good and wait. Behave good and wait. For in due season, who's in control of the seasons? We shall reap, if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good to all men, especially to them who are of the household of faith, especially to those who are chosen, to the brothers and sisters, especially do good to them. Let's tie all this up. Yahusha's way of daily sacrifice is continual, and Satan absolutely hates us walking this narrow path of overcoming. So he'll try to distract, attack, and make us stumble because he wants to get back into heaven. He thinks that if he can come into us, who are in the process, in the 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐴𝐿 experience and in the process of deliverance, if he can come and mix his swill in with us, he thinks he can become eternal too. He's that stupid. Mankind was created to be a set-apart temple. We're created to be a set-apart temple of Yahusha's supernatural love. So those who choose to be transformed back into such, those who choose to be transformed back into the original pattern, which Adam was, to be a temple of righteous behavior, behaving as such. Those who call to be transformed back into such are called to offer themselves up as a daily sacrifice and love Yahusha with all their heart, mind and being, and love their neighbor as themselves. The royal laws, that's how you know that you are through the cauldron experience. You're through the flogging, chastising, whipping, rebuking, Hebrews 12 experience. That's how you know you're through, because you're doing the two royal laws and you are in the fruits of righteousness, the fruits of the Spirit. Living this way is not popular, but with our armor on, we need to have no fear of the fiery trials by day or the attacks that come at night. Yahusha knows those he is working with and empowers them to finish the race. Finish the race. He said, I will finish the job in you that I started. And our part is to run your race. His job is to finish the work that he started, and our job is to run our race. It has to be hand in hand. It's working the same process. And that process is, of course, called the narrow gate or the vein. Traveling through this vein of gold. Remember we talked about it? Don't lose sight of it. So he knows who he's chosen and he's working with them, empowering them to finish the race that he has put, and the narrow path he's put them on. It's not just Yahusha's appointed times or his Moedim or his Sabbath shadows, feast shadows and sacrifices that we talked about in the older scriptures, all those things that were laid out like breadcrumbs to us to look at and go, okay, what are the appointed times? What are the Sabbaths? What are the sacrifices? The blood? What is it all for? It's all for us. It's not just all those things that are continual in our lives. Doing the shadows is not continual. You're an idiot if you do the shadows. You got to do what the shadows are pointing to. You got to focus on who the shadows are pointing to, what each feast is pointing to, what the Sabbath is pointing to, what the sacrifices are pointing to, and do that with him. Not just the shadow. You don't do the shadows. So back to the sentence. It's not just Yahusha's appointed times, Sabbath, shadows, sacrifices that are continual in our lives, but every path, every process, every routine, every idea that he has put in us, every idea that he's told us to walk, behave and implement in our lives, which must be adhered to repetitively. Everything he gives us, he's in every thought, isn't he? Millions and trillions of thoughts, as many as there are of grains of sand on the seashore daily to us. He's in every thought if we in our importance allow him in. He's in all of them, and all of them must be adhered to, because there is always going to be pressure from without and within to lay waste, to desolate, to listen to that abomination that wants to come into us and desolate us. We need to desolate what has desolated us. There's always going to be pressure from within and without to lay waste and stop living good, stop doing good, stop behaving good, obediently and right. The abomination that lays waste, Satan reigning in Yahusha's temples, is already set up strong and proud in people's hearts, which means the end is very near. And he says, as the angel said, when's it going to finish? When's this abomination going to be over? When is all these visions going to end? When Yahusha returns and causes it. But he's already revealed himself to his chosen few, and in them it is ending. In them the abomination has ceased. In them they are being transformed to have him reigning on their hearts, to have his words in their mouth, to become new creations like he did. Because that's what following the vein is, following him. And the vein began with him leaving his throne as Yahuah and transforming into a new creation called Yahusha. And we follow him through the feast, through the sufferings, through the death, resurrection, ascension. We follow him. Brothers and sisters, do not get tired in doing good, being good, behaving good, listening to good. Do not get tired. Don't allow yourself, don't entertain those thoughts. You are planted where you're planted, even if you are the only one in your house who feels like you do about Yahusha. Even if you are walking this alone, inwardly, spiritually, do not lose hope. Do not lose heart. There are many of us scattered all over the world. We don't know who the bride is. It's so exciting when people contact us and agree with us because we know, oh, we've got that common thread. You're in the vein too. You're in the narrow gate. You found Yahusha, you're Elohim. Don't lose heart, guys. There are people all over the world going through exactly what you are going through, because this is the way. Yahusha is no respecter of persons. If you want him, you've got to run. And you've got to run through the fire. It is hot. The cauldron, when it heats up, it's torturous. That's the best word to explain it. Torture, in the purest sense of the word. And he puts us through that to cleanse us, to burn all the wickedness out of us, to create in us a clean heart, create in us a clean spirit, a clean vessel with which he can reign on, so that we are no longer an abomination, but we are a delight. The sacrifices that we produce in our vessel are a delight in his wonderful nostrils. I love you, brothers and sisters. Keep repetitively doing good. It's repetitive. When he gives you a word, keep putting it out there. It's got to be repetitive. It's got to be continual, because the sacrifices are continual and the works and behaviors are continual. And it can get laborious, but we are commanded not to get tired of doing good.
We are the living dwelling of Yahusha, and living water is flowing freely. We are the living dwelling of Yahusha, and the Torah shines our way. We are the living dwelling of Yahusha, and living water is flowing freely. We are the living dwelling of Yahusha, and the Torah shines our way. We are called out to love one another, but our enemies need some as well. With Yahusha inside us redeeming, urging us to forgive and forget. We are called to consider it all joy, every hurt, every pressure and pain. It's the way we stay clean and obedient, till we see everything burn away. 'Cause we are the living dwelling of Yahusha, and living water is flowing freely. We are the living dwelling of Yahusha, and the Torah shines our way. everything burnt away. We are the living stones of the assembly, with living manna we meet together. We are the living stones of the assembly, and Yahusha lights our path. We are the living stones of the assembly, with living manna we meet together. We are the living stones of the assembly, and Yahusha lights our path. Here we go. So shine your light, don't quit the fight, 'cause it's not been for now.